It's not just their protective shell and cage. Their wild paint jobs are designed to intimidate. Incredibly, back in the 1960s, the first goalies to wear masks were ridiculed by fans who viewed them as a sign of weakness. Today, though, ice hockey goalie masks are all about putting on a brave face. These masks allow the goaltender to play it safe, so they're far less likely to be sidelined by a serious injury. Production begins with a plaster mold of an average person's face. The mouth hole is plugged with plasticine. This ensures that the mold won't leak when it's filled with plaster of Paris. It's left to dry for half an hour. Then, the initial mold is pulled off to reveal the solid impression. Plasticine is pressed onto strategic areas. This mimics the foam safety guards that cushion every mask. The final result is called a plug, and it will be used to make a two-part compression mold. After a black sealer is applied, it's polished smooth, eliminating imperfections that will be visible on the mold that will be made from it. Over at another station, fiberglass fabric is unrolled and cut into sheets, which are layered. A pattern is drawn on the top sheet. Spacing the shapes closely together minimizes waste. The goal is to create 100 masks from one roll of material. A disc cutter slices through 25 layers of the fiberglass fabric. Then, various composite fabrics are stacked, including several fiberglass ones and patches of Kevlar for reinforcement. Kevlar can absorb so much impact, it's used to make bulletproof vests. More fabric is placed over the Kevlar. An epoxy resin is spread onto each layer. They are draped over a mold that's been made from the plug. And the material is smoothed to eliminate air pockets, as they are then layered and glued. The ragged edges are trimmed away. Then, the inside portion of the mold is placed into the outside one. The wet fabric is now sandwiched between two mold pieces. A 1-ton press is lowered to compress the layers of fabric, as the resins between them continue to form a bond. Clamps are added to keep things tight. After 20 minutes, the laminated fiberglass shell is prized from the mold. The shell is now extremely rigid. It's the raw form of a goalie mask, but it still needs a lot of work, so it's over to the trimming and grinding station. A trim jig is placed over the shell. A high-speed router is used to cut an opening for the cage. The flash is sliced off with a disc grinder. The edges are sanded and ground. Holes are drilled, which will be used to attach various fasteners. Larger holes are carved out. These aid ventilation and reduce the mask's weight. The mask is almost complete, but it still needs a snazzy paint job. The makers of ice hockey goalie masks have turned safety into an art form. The mask has become a canvas for some very bold designs and colours. It's a psychological tactic to intimidate the other team, and it scores points with the fans who like the cool paint jobs. The mask is roughed up with an orbital sander to prepare it for painting. Then a sealer is poured into a container. The technician wears a safety mask because the emissions are toxic. He adds the activator solution and a reactive reducer and stirs the sealer together. Then he sprays the sealer mix onto the masks. The finish will cure and harden as the chemicals in it generate their own heat. Next, a vivid gold base coat is sprayed. Computer graphics are sent to a plotter that cuts out adhesive vinyl paint masks. Any unneeded vinyl around the stencil is pulled away. This process is called weeding. Then, the vinyl stencils are pressed against the mask and the paper backing is peeled off. Applying a stencil to the crown is tricky because the surface is curved with ridges, so it doesn't lay flat. The technician lifts and cuts the pattern with a utility knife and then straightens it out. This mask is starting to look impressive. But the whole thing is covered with white paint. It's a temporary cover-up. This process is all about layering patterns and colour. More vinyl shapes are applied. Then, using a pressurized paint system, everything is sprayed bright red. Next, an artist airbrushes some shadowing on the now barely visible image of a leaf. Some of the vinyl is peeled away. The surface of the mask is sprinkled with water. Paint is misted over it, and the water droplets catch the paint. It's blasted with a heat gun. The water evaporates, but the paint dries in droplet form, giving the mask a frosted look. A drop shadow is airbrushed around some lettering. The technician dispenses with the usual safety gloves for this detailed work. And now, all is revealed. The vinyl is peeled away. Any flaws are touched up. The technician traces the pattern onto see-through paper and then transfers it onto board. He cuts it out with a utility knife. Then he aligns it with the shape on the mask and precisely airbrushes around it to make the smudge disappear. With the final clear coat, this mask makes a colourful statement. And now it's time to put all the pieces together. The stainless steel cage is screwed on. A little glue is applied to reinforce the adhesive-backed foam cushioning. The sweatband is attached with Velcro so it can be removed and washed. The harness is threaded through the back plate to the front of the mask. The harness is elastic, so it gives the mask some flexibility. Now it's ready to go out on the rink. And these completed masks scream, the puck stops here.
slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit.